Welcome back. We start a news bulletin from Iraq, where tens of thousands have gathered in the capital city of Baghdad, calling for the expulsion of US forces. The rally comes after influential Shia cleric Muqtada al-Sadr called for a million march against American military presence in the country. Sadr called on Iraqis to mobilize and defend the country's sovereignty. Following Friday prayers, massive crowds gathered under grey skies in the Jadriya district of East Baghdad. Men and women waved red, white and black national colors and chanted slogans against the United States. Local media says the demonstrators will amass in the intersection of Baghdad University. On January 5th, the Iraqi parliament voted overwhelmingly to expel all US-led forces 2 days after Iranian commander Soleimani's assassination. More on Middle East. The US says it has not yet entered into talks with Iraq over the withdrawal of troops from the country. Iraq's parliament had passed a unanimous resolution calling for all US troops to leave the country. Speaking to reporters, US Special Envoy for Syria and the coalition against ISIS, James Jeffrey, said there has not been any real engagement. Jeffrey said Washington is prepared to discuss its overall strategic relationship with the Iraqi government. He said US operations against ISIS will not remain on hold forever.
Coalition operations have been primarily on pause in Iraq as we focus on force protection and looking into the way forward with the Iraqi government after the non-binding vote by the Council of Representatives on the withdrawal of US and thus coalition forces.
Moving on, Saudi Arabia has called on Iran to stay out of Arab lands, referring to Tehran's alleged involvement in Syria, Iraq and Lebanon. Saudi Minister of State for Foreign Affairs Adil al-Jubair said the regional tension is a reaction to Iran's heavy-handed interference. Speaking to a panel at World Economic Forum in Davos, al-Jubair said Tehran supports Shia groups in the Middle East who incite violence. He said Iran should stop providing ballistic missiles to terrorist organizations. The minister said Tehran should learn from anti-Hezbollah protests in Lebanon. US President Donald Trump says he will release his long-awaited peace plan for the Middle East on January 28th. Speaking ahead of his rally in Miami, Trump said Palestinians may react negatively to his plan at first, but it will benefit them in the long run. The US president said he will make the announcement ahead of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to Washington, D.C. Washington has also invited Netanyahu's electoral rival Benny Gantz to US to help negotiate a power-sharing deal. Trump said his administration has spoken briefly to the Palestinians over the plan. Responding, spokesperson to the Palestinian president Nabil Abu Rodane warned Israel and the US not to cross any red lines. Rodane said the Palestinian leadership will not recognize any US plan it has already rejected. President Vladimir Putin says Russia will boost ties with Palestine in the economic and humanitarian affairs. Putin met his Palestinian counterpart Mahmoud Abbas in the occupied West Bank city of Bethlehem. After attending the Holocaust Memorial in Jerusalem, Putin said it was vital to oppose xenophobia and anti-Semitism everywhere. Abbas said he and Putin discussed regional issues, including US President Donald Trump's long-awaited Middle East peace plan.
There are some regional issues that we need to discuss with the President Putin, such as Israel's announcement to annex Palestinian land. Also, the deal of the century, which Mr. Trump said will be published soon.
The UN has welcomed Russia's proposal to organize a meeting of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. Yesterday, Russia's President Vladimir Putin called for the summit to discuss global issues. Russian state media said Deputy Spokesperson for the UN Secretary General Farhan Haq encouraged the dialogue among member states. Earlier, speaking in Jerusalem, Putin said Moscow is ready for a serious conversation with the veto-wielding powers. Putin said such a summit will play a crucial role in meeting existing challenges and threats and saving civilizations. The presidents of the European Commission and European Council have signed the Brexit deal. The agreement signed by Ursula von der Leyen and Charles Michel will now be sent to the European Parliament on January 29th for ratification. The divorce deal was sent to Brussels after the UK Parliament passed it and the Queen signed it into law. The withdrawal agreement provides for an 11-month transition period until the end of the 2020 for both sides to negotiate a new trade deal. The UK is set to leave the EU on the 31st of January, over 3.5 years after the referendum. The death toll from the new coronavirus in China has risen to 26, with at least 830 confirmed cases. Authorities say they have broadened the lockdown in 10 cities of central Hubei province. Now, this report will tell you more.
China has effectively isolated nearly 20 million people across Wuhan and 9 nearby cities to contain the virus. The government has stopped all public transport in and out of China's Hubei province, including trains, buses, and ferries.
If people in other parts of the country can realize that it is better not to get together to celebrate the Spring Festival, but stay at home for rest, it would be an effective protection measure, and make sure that you wear a mask when you are outside. I'd really like to emphasize the importance of mask culture.
Outside the mainland, cases have been confirmed in Hong Kong, Macau, the US, UK, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, Thailand, Singapore, and Vietnam. Many countries are screening travelers from China for symptoms of the virus, while others have banned flights to and from the region. But the World Health Organization says the outbreak is not yet a global health emergency.
Make no mistake, this is, though, an emergency in China. But it has not yet become a global health emergency.
Chinese health authorities are still trying to determine the origin of the virus, which they believe came from a seafood market in Wuhan. The symptoms of the deadly disease include fever, coughing, and breathing difficulties.
In a related development, to contain the spread of the deadly coronavirus, Chinese authorities are building a hospital in Wuhan city dedicated solely to the crisis. The project is to be completed in 6 days to deal with patients on an emergency basis. Building machinery, including 35 diggers and 10 bulldozers, are working on the site day and night. They aim to get the facility ready by Monday. The hospital will have around 1,000 beds to treat patients. Wuhan, the epicenter of the virus with 11 million people, is in a virtual lockdown. Leading international publication The Economist has slammed Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi for endangering the country's democracy. On its latest cover, the weekly magazine criticized the Modi government over discriminatory and authoritarian steps. In a review, The Economist said, Modi is trying to transform India into a chauvinist Hindu state. It said the Modi administration has also taken steps that amount to collective punishment of millions in occupied Kashmir. The magazine said Kashmiris have suffered arbitrary arrests, smothering curfews, and an internet blackout. It termed the citizenship law as Indian government's most ambitious step yet in a decades-long project of incitement. It warned that the implementation of the citizenship law can lead to bloodshed in the country. The Economist said Modi's policies blatantly discriminate against minorities, especially Muslims. A Turkish delegation has visited Rohingya refugee camps in Bangladesh after the ICJ ordered Myanmar to stop genocide. The team, led by the ruling party's deputy head Mehmet Oshazgi, said Ankara will continue to support Rohingya refugees. Oyaseki examined Turkey's humanitarian activities in the camps. He said, helping the Rohingya is a moral and humanitarian duty. Turkish NGO IAH has built over 9,000 bamboo houses in Bangladesh to house 50,000 people. 217 Bengali workers have been deported from Saudi Arabia. The workers were promised lucrative jobs there by corrupt recruiting agencies, fleecing thousands of dollars. Riyadh says it has currently over 2.5 million Bengalis. Bangladesh-based migration NGO said no recruiting agency has been punished for cheating the workers. Bangladeshi Foreign Minister A.K. Abdul Momen says the government has enhanced monitoring to avoid similar incidents. In 2019, nearly 26,000 Bangladeshi workers were deported from the kingdom. President Rodrigo Duterte has threatened to end Philippines' military ties with US over Washington's visa refusal to one of his political allies. Duterte says he will appeal the agreement on deployment of troops and equipment with the US if the visa is not granted within a month. Duterte said he will terminate the 1998 Visiting Forces Agreement. Senator De La Rosa was Duterte's police chief during the war on drugs that resulted in deaths of over 5,000 people. De La Rosa said it was likely his visa was rejected because of the allegations. Duterte makes no secret of his disdain for the United States, which is also the Philippines' biggest defense ally. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has invited observers from the UN and EU to upcoming parliamentary elections. Foreign Ministry says Maduro also urged Mexico, Argentina, and Panama to send their representatives. The Venezuelan president also suggested UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to name a commission to oversee the National Assembly elections. Maduro's re-election in 2018 was boycotted by the opposition, claiming rigging in favor of the ruling Socialist Party. Libya's neighbors Egypt, Tunisia, Sudan, Chad, and Niger have denounced foreign intervention in Tripoli. In a foreign ministers' meeting in Algiers, the leaders, including that of Mali and Germany, stressed the need to resolve the crisis through dialogue. The ministers urged Libyan belligerents to engage in talks under the auspices of the United Nations. The statement said foreign meddling will only prolong the crisis and make it more complex. Algeria's Foreign Minister Sabri Boukadoum said the warring parties must respect the truce. The meeting comes on the heels of the recent Berlin conference that agreed on limiting foreign involvement in the country. Libya has been mired in a civil war since the fall of the former leader Muammar Gaddafi's regime in 2011. Six soldiers are killed and several others wounded in an overnight attack in central Mali. The army says the troops came under fire from unidentified men in the Mopti region bordering Burkina Faso. In a statement, the army said no one has claimed responsibility for the attack yet. Earlier on Tuesday, 2 soldiers were killed in the same region when their convoy hit a roadside bomb. Mali is struggling to contain an armed uprising that erupted in the north in 2012 and has since killed thousands of soldiers and civilians. The conflict has also spread to neighboring Burkina Faso and Niger. We have a lot more coming up right after this short break, so stay tuned. Stock markets across Europe are trading higher, breaking a 4-day losing streak. This comes after the World Health Organization did not designate the new coronavirus a global emergency. Investor sentiment now appears to be strengthening as major sectors surge. London's FTSE 100 is trading over 1.5% higher. Frankfurt's DAX and CAC 40 in Paris have also gained nearly 1.5% after European Central Bank kept policy rate unchanged. In Asia, Shanghai Composite closed over 2.5% lower as coronavirus halted economic activity in China. Hong Kong's Hang Seng and Nikkei 225 gained ground. Now let's look at the weather from around the globe. This is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.